Tennessee basketball. And again, I'll tell you, Caleb, I do not pretend to be an X's and O's master. I don't pretend to be a betting trend guy, but I had a weird feeling they would show up flat just like last week. I thought that they would show up and play really well against Alabama. I honestly can't remember if I said on the show, but I talked to my son and wife about it on Friday. And I just had a weird feeling that Wednesday against Alabama was not a turning of the corner. It was just one of the ups and downs and what has become a very up and down sort of basketball season. So I'm not surprised that Tennessee didn't play well against Kentucky. Before we get into whether or not the Vols were figured out, how are you this morning, and what did you think as a synopsis of the game?
I'm doing pretty well. I got to give you a shout out, Dave. You called it. You called the Alabama upset and Tennessee coming out flat this past weekend. Honestly, it was shocking to me that Tennessee was even favored against Kentucky, which threw me off because I thought playing at Kentucky, given the way the season has gone, look, I'm going to get to Tennessee in a minute, but this is somewhat par for the course for college basketball this year. You know, fans will sit there and celebrate and say, it's so much parity. It's so great. No, it's not. It's so much mediocrity. It's just a bunch of really bad teams fighting to be the champion, fighting to be the tallest kid in kindergarten. That's college basketball this year. And it's just it's horrible to watch. You know, Maryland, the day after Tennessee upset number 1 Alabama, upset number 2 Purdue, and then Maryland just lost to Nebraska on the road last night. So this has been happening across the nation. It seems like nobody knows how to play on the road. And so I think this is you say they came out flat. I don't think they came out flat. I think there's just a significant underlying problem with their offense that's been going on, and I wrote about this last night, that's been going on since the first time they played against Kentucky. They've been figured out on offense, and they have made no adjustments since Kentucky figured them out.
Probably a better way to put it. I agree with that. I just thought that if a team's trending in the right way, they're able to generate points in clutch situations. They hit their free throws when they have to, and that to me was kind of the coming out flat part. You didn't really cure anything on Wednesday, right? You put a Band-Aid on it. And I think that's kind of what I was getting at. But you're right. Figured out quite possibly. That leads us to today's tough question. It is now today's tough question. We appreciate the guys on the message board already this morning as we're with you live each and every weekday at 10 a.m. So before I get to today's tough question, do want to throw out some comments. Travis says, good morning. John says, can someone start free throw throwing underhand free throws? Maybe they can make those better. I'm reminded of the Shaquille O'Neal story where he was asked to start doing underhanded free throws at LSU. Who is his coach? I'm sure you remember.
I don't know who his coach was.
Dale something.
Not Dale Harris?
I know you can find it. But anyway, he said, if you can hit 70% during practice, then I'm not going to make you shoot free throws underhanded. And he did. He hit 72% in a practice. Out of 100 free throws, he hit 72. And it was just getting in front of players or getting in front of fans. And I don't know that that's Tennessee's fault, but something is going on because their free throw shooting, be it underhanded or not, has a real issue. But these guys can actually shoot. Today's tough question is now.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Real simple. Put it on the message board. Give me your thoughts. Has this Tennessee basketball team been figured out? Is it just that simple? Cut and dry. Today's tough question brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn Vision Center that is all about those in Knoxville and taking care of people with a local touch because they mean it. They want you to feel fantastic and see better than ever before. It was sunny on Saturday, and I was just enjoying my far away vision. I had LASIK, and it's just phenomenal. So we're going to address the near vision, too, and take care of the readers. So I love Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. They're right there in Knoxville. And again, they're local. Cataract surgery, regular eye day, whatever the case may be. You can go get your eyes checked at Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, their various vision centers. So let me just put it out there. Has this Tennessee basketball team been figured out? And when I ask that question, Caleb, I want to provide the caveat that if they've been figured out, there's really no going back for Tennessee. It's not as if they stumbled. It's not as if they've had issues. It's not as if they could switch things up. Figured out to me means that they've got a real problem in that there's really no fixing it if college basketball has figured them out. So with that caveat, I ask you that. Have they been figured out?
On offense, yes. No one's figured out their defense, and that's fine because that's why they'll still be able to pull off upsets like last week against Alabama. But their offense has been absolutely figured out. And I just for Ron Slay, if he's watching, I'm going to sip a little bit.
I've never known anybody that enjoys getting a take right as much as you.
I'm a very humble guy, guys. Okay, so anyways, I wrote. So if you remember, Tennessee lost to Kentucky the first time. Everybody thought that was a fluke. Everybody's like, they just came. Even me, myself, I'll be honest. I thought it was a fluke. Tennessee came out flat. It was a Saturday. They were retiring Chris Lofton's jersey. It was their first. It was only their second loss, and we're thinking not that big of a deal. We had Burt Bertelkamp on like 3 days later, and I think it was Burt Bertelkamp that actually pointed out. Maybe it was somebody else, but he was the one who pointed out to me that Kentucky was staying on the perimeter and not collapsing whenever Tennessee threw it down low.
He was the first one to say that. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was the first one to say that. Tennessee wins their next 4, including against number 10 Texas. I wrote after their win over Texas that this is a concern because, yes, they're on a 4-game winning streak with their defense, but does anybody notice there's been a massive dip in their three-point shooting? A massive dip, and that there's going to be a problem long-term. Well, since that Texas win, they've lost 4 of 6, 3 of their last 4, just got swept by Kentucky. Offense has been terrible, and this is the problem. Every team is now saying, you know what? We'll let you have your little inside game. We'll let you throw it down to Russ or Olivia or whoever. We're staying on the perimeter, and we're going to make Santi Vescovi shoot with a guy in his face. We're going to make Tyreek Key shoot with a guy in his face. We're going to just keep doing that. And they have not been able to figure out how to get past that, quite honestly. And I think they've been figured out. I think the real truth of the matter is we're seeing Tennessee's three-point shooters are not Chris Lofton or even Jawan Smith, which is to say they can't hit threes when they're guarded. They can't hit threes with a hand in their face, and that's a big problem.
No, they can't, and they're not great open either because now they're starting to think about it a little bit more. Same thing at the free throw line. I think the most frustrating thing right now, Caleb, is I think if you just put them in the gym all by themselves, they'd be good shooters. And I just don't think they're good shooters now because it's in their head. So have they figured themselves out or have they been figured out? I think it's a little bit of both. I think they're in their own heads right now. And a late free throw that needs to be clutch is absolutely something that Tennessee is not good at. And I don't think they're going to be good at it anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, outside of Tyreek and Santi, though, like, who is that good of a shooter on this team? And Tyreek has been awful. So I would agree it's in Tyreek's head. It's totally in Tyreek Key's head right now. And it's obviously in Santi's head, too. Outside of those two, it's hard for me to say it's in their head because I don't think anybody on this team is that good of a shooter, if I'm being honest with you. I think that Rick Barnes recruited guys who have a solid mid-range, big guys who can play underneath the basket, and a lot of guys who can slash to the basket like Zakai Ziegler. Well, unless you're doing the dribble drive like John Calipari, that's not really a formula for winning as much in the NBA now. In college basketball nowadays. And I just don't know if you can. I don't think you can fix it overnight. There's no amount of scheming you can do except for relying on guys to hit shots, and Tennessee just doesn't have enough shooters on this team.
Agree. Hit that like button. We want to get more people as part of the program, and that gets us out there on YouTube. So hit the like button if you haven't subscribed yet. please do that, as we've got a lot of things to get to. So moving forward, how have you adjusted over the past 2 weeks, since Caleb was one of kind of the first to say that this offense may be figured out, that Tennessee does not play a style of offense that is conducive to NCAA tournament play. So where do you see this team finishing in March? Do you have a feel for that at this point?
I'm pretty convinced that they're not getting past the first weekend now. I mean, if every game you're playing, you can't buy an outside bucket anymore. I mean, you don't play more than 2 games in the tournament where at least one team is playing well offensively. And there's no amount of defense that you can play that'll slow that down. So, I mean, I think best case scenario, Tennessee makes it to Saturday or Sunday. I don't see them. I don't see how they make it to the Sweet 16 anymore or beyond that.
No, I had them out first weekend, even before the Alabama game. So, so far you've got at A&M left, South Carolina at home, Arkansas at home, and then at Auburn. How do you think they finish out those last 4? I'm going to go ahead and say 2-2 at best.
I'm going to go 2-2. I'll be fair. You could see 1-3, by the way, because
Sure you could.
I'm sorry.
Sure you could. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah. Like I think they'll beat South Carolina at home. I think the home crowd will help them beat Arkansas. I got them losing both road games. I don't think they can. I got them losing both games on the road, and that's the thing. Their last 2 wins are Alabama and Auburn, which is a number 1 win and a top 25 win, but they didn't feel like top 25 wins. That Auburn game was the most atrocious basketball I think I've ever watched in years. I mean, the Alabama game was more. Alabama committed a lot of turnovers. I just think at Auburn and at A&M, I don't think they're winning either of those.